What's going on, everyone? We're going to look at dividends over time, and can you live off of Yieldmax Roundhill Neos, JEPQ, JEPI, and I forgot to add SCHD, but it is in here. We're going to look at quite a few funds today. We're going to look at their dividends over time, and we're also going to look at their trailing 12-month dividends. What is that? Trailing dividend information is important because it does provide a historical view of the company's dividend payments. Now, this is important in retirement. Do the dividends go down over time? Do they rise? Do they stay flat? And that will help you in planning your retirement and which funds to get in or maybe not get in. And there was some surprises with Yieldmax that I found, and with Neos and some others. So here's this about the trailing 12-month, and just another reason why people use it, because we're going to use two different metrics in here to look at the dividends over time and why it's important to understand the dividend trends. It's vital, because if they're going down over time, it's extremely difficult to retire off of those funds. Okay, let's start here with TSLY. The reason I want to start with TSLY is because it's one of the oldest Yieldmax funds, and it has a lot of data. Well, not a lot, but a couple, 3 years worth of data to look at. So what do we see here with their dividends in this chart here? Well, they are definitely going down over time, right? Lower highs and lower lows in the dividends, which are decreasing over time, which means if this trend continues, these dividends will continue to decrease over time. I know people do get excited when there's a little rise up and say, hey, we're coming back up. No, it's just a lower high forming in TSLY dividends. Let's look at their trailing. And you can see here in the TTM, the 12-month trailing, that is definitely going down over time. So these two match up rather well. Sometimes the trailing and the historical don't really match up. Sometimes you'll see that in this comparison view, but here they both match up identical. So for this example here, for me, and me personally, there's no way I could buy TSLY and expect to live off this fund. Okay? OARK is another old one. We're going to do a lot of popular Yieldmax funds, some of what I would consider, I guess, their better ones, and just some of their more popular ones. Well, OARK also has a lot of history as far as Yieldmax is concerned, and we can see here again another historical view of all their distributions, lower highs, lower lows over time. We have been channeling here for a little bit with OARK. Let's look at their trailing and see if it matches with their historical view. And we can again see here that the distributions are decreasing over time. Couldn't live off OARK. Let's look at MISTY. Well, we can just see in this chart historical view of MISTY dividends. We are encountering lower lows. If this, I know people were really excited about this recent distribution of 2.37. We'll see how high it can go. If it can't go higher than that other peak, it's just another lower high, possibly, and then we could look for another lower low with MISTY distributions. Let's look at the trailing and see what that has to say about MISTY distributions. This one doesn't give us a lot of data here on this one. So just the last, number of months, I reckon. And we can see here the trailing is showing that it is going down over time. We did have that higher high there. So if MISTY does rebound and gets above that other higher distribution, we can't say that they're going down over time. But we'll have to see if it actually gets higher than that other dividend. But as for now, with the lower low, MISTY distributions are going down over time. What about ULTY? That's a very popular one, and we can see here clearly the distributions have gone down over time. You can see the sharp decline there. That's when they went weekly, And we can see that it's kind of stabilized. Let's see what the trailing has to say about ULTY and trying to live off that. Well, we can see here the last number of months that it is going down, lower highs and lower lows with the trailing. So again, ULTY with that kind of sharp decline, along with the 12-month trailing, just not something I could live off of personally. Okay, I do hold NVDY. In June, I will have this fund totally paid off. Its ROI will be intact. And we can see here, this was concerning about NVDY and kind of why I quit putting money into it. And thank goodness I did, and just let the ROI work. Even during the bull run, you can see January 2024, how it shot up. But since that time, even during the bull run, July of 2024, you can see lower dividends over time, lower highs, and we can see lower lows coming in. Let's see what the trailing has to say about NVDY. The trailing is a little off, right? It's not lining up. The trailing is actually showing it going up. We had a higher high. Let's see if this low is the lowest for trailing, and then maybe something can turn around for NVDY. But if you look at the distributions over time, especially during the bull run, lower highs and lower lows, this one, the trailing, isn't matching up. Let's look at AMZY, another one I own. AMZY here is a little mixed bag. We have a higher high, as you can see right there. Each high dating back before January of 2024. The distributions, each high has been higher. And we've had lower or higher lows as well. AMZY is definitely a surprise to me when I started looking at this. If the AMZY can break out here over the next number of months and even get a higher distribution, we can honestly say that AMZY's distributions are creating higher highs and higher lows. So those dividends, as of this chart right now, aren't necessarily declining over time. We need, you can see clearly higher highs and higher lows. Let's see what the trailing has to say. Trailing again is showing it's coming down. We'll see if it settles in here and starts to go back up, but kind of a mixed bag there with the trailing and AMZY. So AMZY definitely a surprise here. Let's go look at YMAX. YMAX definitely was going down over time, as you can see there. And then since they went weekly, it's kind of stabilized here. It's going to be interesting to see what the trailing looks like with YMAX. But since they went weekly, it's kind of just been in a range. And look at this. Higher highs and higher lows on the YMAX dividends. So if YMAX can get a higher dividend whenever it pays next, we can honestly say it's creating higher highs and higher lows in their dividends. But that's what we're seeing now. YMAX and AMZY are actually looking good. MRNY is really popular. I know it's not good, but it is so popular because it's so inexpensive. What do their dividends look like over time? Well, decreasing quite dramatically. It had that huge rip up right there. Everyone got excited about MRNY, and since that point, it has fallen off quite dramatically. And we can see here it is falling down over time. Does the trailing line up with it? Absolutely. Cannot live off this one at all. I just find it hard to believe that people are really excited about this. But there we go. Let's look at NFLY. I owned that one for a while. I actually sold it for profits. So we can see here that the lows, we had a lower low. July 24th low was lower than January's. Or actually, it's probably December's dividend. And then January of 2025, it's a little bit higher. We're having lower highs as their distribution is going on. So kind of a mixed bag here with NFLY. Let's see if we can find anything out through the trailing. And the trailing has it going down over time as well. Kind of a mixed bag here with NFLY. We'd like to see a higher high come out of here so we can, over the next month or two and say that, okay, NFLY is definitely creating higher highs and dividends and higher lows. So we'll just have to see how NFLY works out. Kind of a mixed bag, although the trailing does have it declining. Phoebe, another one I've owned, and I think it's one of their better ones. We can see here clearly, even during the bull run of last year, the dividends or distributions were declining over time. We're creating lower highs and lower lows in the dividends, or disbursements, whatever you want to call them, distributions, whatever. We're kind of just creating, since January, creating lower highs and lower lows. Let's see what the trailing has to say. And yeah, the trailing from October of 2024, it maybe even November, it reached a peak, and since that point has been falling off. People will say, oh, it's because the market's going down. Over time, the markets will go up and down. So it's important to see how these things work over time. Okay? Let's get into some Roundhill now. XDTE. Look at this chart. We had that huge monstrous high up there, but discounting that, the highs or the lows are higher. Look how it's just slowly trending up in their distributions, creating higher lows in their distributions. Let's see what the trailing has to say. The trailing on this one is also going up, both of them. No mixed bag here on the trailing. Trailing has it going up over time, as does the actual distributions. I mean, it's going to have to get way, way above that peak for us to create higher highs. But, there's those other two peaks over there around July of 2024. If we can get back up to those levels, we can honestly say that we're creating higher dividends or distributions or disbursements over time, and the trailing tends to agree. QDTE again with a major spike, just like XDTE, more flatlined here, although we're not seeing, you can see there before July of 2024, they had a low over there. It hasn't quite reached that low, although it hasn't quite reached the high either of above 50 cents. So kind of flatlined here, which isn't bad if you're trying to live off that, right? It's stable, it's flatlined. That's kind of what you want. Some disbursement you can count on week in and week out. However, the trailing has it going down over time here, although we just have a couple months worth of data here with this chart on the trailing. Mixed bag on the trailing versus the actual distributions, but looks fairly stable. QQQI, a Neos fund. So we were creating higher highs and higher lows. You can see that during the bull run, which is nice to see, unlike some other funds that were creating lower highs and lower lows. But then the dividend disbursements, whatever, had dropped off when the market sold off. We went from well over like 65 cents back there at its peak to now at 53 cents. So a 10 cent, 13 cent drop, which isn't as dramatic as like a Yieldmax fund, but we're still seeing that. What does the trailing tell us? Since February going down, as to be expected when the market goes down, but that's what it is. The data is the data. The TTM is going down, as are the disbursements. We need QQQI to get up out of here and go back to new highs, but we'll see what happens with QQQI. That's didn't expect to see that out of a Neos fund, but here we are. Let's look at SPYI. SPYI was doing a great job. Look at that from 2023 on up to 2025 of creating higher highs and higher lows, which is exactly what you want to see when you're trying to live off a fund. However, sold off quite dramatically, and the dividend came down here and looks like it formed a new low. What does the trailing tell us? Well, the trailing tells us the exact opposite. Tells us it will be going up over time. So, mixed bag there with the trailing and SPYI. I personally love SPYI, even with this sharp drop in distributions. I think we'll get back to that point once the market starts going back up of creating higher highs and higher lows of distributions. I still love SPYI, and I buy the heck out of it whenever I can afford it. I think this is my last one, SCHD. Look at this sucker. So, we're talking well before 2020. The dividends have increased over time. This is one you can absolutely live off and plan throughout all kinds of market conditions. Look at this. So, pretty dramatic here. I mean, just look at higher highs and higher lows with all their distributions. Let's go look at the trailing. Yeah, the trailing lines right up with it through all the data. The trailing is increasing along with this. So SCHD is definitely a winner. Let's go look at JEPQ. JEPQ, kind of sporadic here. We had some nice higher highs and higher lows. It did make a new low in 2024, but since that point, again, got back on its own bull run. And even with the down market period, creating higher lows and higher highs. You really want to see that. I wonder what the trailing will look like with this one. Yeah, I mean, we created a higher high with the trailing, creating a higher low over there around January of 2025. So JEPQ definitely a winner. SCHD a winner. Look at that. Just beautiful. SPYI with the trailing a winner. I love SPYI, so it's a winner, but I'm biased. In my mind, leave that up to you to decide. QQQI, we'll have to see. Look at that. QDTE, flatlined, but the TTM is telling us a different story. XDTE, look at this beauty. XDTE, definitely a winner. Phoebe, no. NFLY, no. MRNY, no. YMAX, yes. Yes. Very nice out of YMAX. AMZY, could be. I mean, we're creating lower highs. We'll see. NVDY, no. ULTY, no. MISTY, no. OARK, no. OARK, no. TSLY, no. So I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think of these charts. This is Mike, Tactical Stock Scalper, out.